The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 116.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library,
the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book
that will enable you to grow personally and professionally.
Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Elaine Leong, co-author of Venture Capital, How to Raise Funds for Your Business. Welcome, Elaine, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Thank you, Wade. Happy to be here.
Will you take just a moment to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you personally?
Okay, well, my name is Elaine Leong. I'm a co-author of Venture Capital, How to Raise Funds for Your Business, which I've co-authored with Dr. Kaiwen Leong and Wenyou Tan. I'm a Princeton graduate last year. Had some experience in sovereign wealth funds, in the investments division, and now also in some multinational banks. I've written quite a lot. Used to write a lot in college as well. Also co-authored about 6 books so far. So really happy, really honored to be on the show today to talk, share my experiences and also about the book.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now let's jump right into your book that you were just speaking of, Venture Capital, which was just made available for purchase back in August 2014. And Elaine, we're going to move quickly, but we're here to cover the top questions that our listener/reader would like to get answered. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Venture Capital?
Okay, now this is a very interesting question because it began actually quite a while ago. Our first book, which I wrote with Dr. Kaiwen Leong, was Singapore's Lost Son. And that was a biography about his life, how he made it from a dropout to a millionaire Princeton PhD holder. And after that book came out, he got many interviews, and a lot of interviews focused on his life. One of the things that he was doing at the time, now he's a assistant professor at Nanyang Technological University. He was also a social entrepreneur, meaning that he would create social enterprises to help the underprivileged, but also make it sustainable. At the time, he thought of a very innovative project. What he did is, before he actually chose who to help, like which underprivileged group to help, he did some extensive research. So he found out that the people who need the most help may not be the people who first come to mind. For example, you may think of orphans or single moms, and these people do need help, but the people who do need help and are not receiving it were actually ex-convicts. So people who had been in prison but were finding it hard to adapt to everyday life. And what he found out was that these people were actually making a lot before through illegal means, and they were also used to being in a position of authority. So that was one of the reasons why they couldn't adapt, because when they got a conventional job in society, they usually start from the bottom, and it's hard to adapt. So what he thought of was he could train these people, teach them how to be entrepreneurs, because a lot of them do have good management skills. They do know how to manage businesses. Maybe previously it wasn't entirely legal, but if he could actually channel this energy towards something constructive, something productive, then he saw potential there. So he actually put in his own money into training these people. And that's when he, when he got a couple of successes. For example, one of them actually opened a food stall, and he actually, increased income to the point where he was able to hire his own family. He was able to open other branches. When these kind of news hit the newspapers, that's when people started approaching him, and when he began training more people, and he eventually, raised venture capital funding himself. So when he gave interviews to newspapers, this was what people were most interested in. And because a lot of people kept coming to him for advice, even the publisher that we were working with at the time, Marshall Cavendish International, they also expressed some interest in this topic. And that's how the book started, really.
Excellent. So what would you say makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
Okay, I think the key difference is that Dr. Kaiwen Leong and his colleague as well, Wenyou Tan, they are not just people who have applied for funding themselves. They're not just people who have helped others to get funding, the ex-convicts they were helping out, but they were also working in Spring Singapore, which is a Singaporean venture capital fund. And because of this, they actually get a 360-degree view of what goes on in the venture capital field. And because they've also had the personal experience of helping others raise funding, they can understand what it's like to go through the process. And they write, the information is given in a way that's really for the absolute beginner.
Okay, very good. So, Elaine, how would you suggest the reader engage with this book? Is this one that they should really jump in and jump out based on the information they need? Or is this one that you designed to be written from front to back?
I think that they can, if they're new to this, I think they should read it from front to back. But if they are, they have some experience, I think they can jump in, jump out, based on chapters that they feel are most relevant to them. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. So, Elaine, we're to my favorite part of the entire interview, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say when we go through the deep dive. But I really would like to hand over the mic to you for the next 5 to 8 minutes and really allow you to show us what's under the hood. Will you take us through your book?
Sure. Okay, so this book is structured and quite segmented for the ease of reading. So each chapter is broken up into 3 parts. The appetizer, which is just a brief overview about what this chapter is about, how is it relevant to them. The second part is the main course, which is the meat of the chapter. And this gives advice on the topic that we listed out in the brief overview. And I guess what people have been most interested and most excited about is the dessert portion. And this is basically personal stories that we've come across in our careers, entrepreneurs we've met, businesses we've met. And these tell a specific lesson that is tied to the specific chapter itself. And we find that people enjoy the dessert section the most simply because experience is one of the things you can't buy. So loads of people go to conferences and they try to network with other entrepreneurs of VC funds just to get experience. But here it's all laid out in the book in bite-sized pieces. Apart from that, we do occasionally have a section called silverware, which is where we explain more technical pieces of technical terms. This is geared towards those who are not so familiar with financial terms or entrepreneurial terms. Apart from that, just to help the reader understand further, we realize that some books, they only depict the success stories. So they only tell you, do this, do that, do this, do that. But we believe that it's equally important to let you know, what not to do. Because avoiding the mistakes is almost as important as doing the right thing. And so in each chapter, we also have categorizations of different entrepreneurs. The first one would be the winners. These are really the top-notch people who actually make it to the top. The in-betweeners, the second category, they're all right. They're just average, but as for VC fund, only a handful of companies actually generate the greatest returns. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur and an in-betweener, it may not work out so well. So these are the people who are just average. And then the third category will be the no hope entrepreneurs. These are the people who, just to put it bluntly, they just do terribly. And so we have stories to depict every category to provide, and that's basically a breakdown of each chapter. Now, just to go through the structure of the book, we try to structure it in a way that's intuitive to a beginner. So we start off with the basics, landscape. What do you need to get to the top? Okay. After this sort of brief introduction to venture capital, we launch into the tools that you need to pitch to VC funds, and that includes how to give the elevator speech, how to pitch, how to write a business plan. Maybe I can draw your attention to an example of how we make it intuitive to readers. So just take a business plan, for example. If someone were to write a business plan for the first time, and sometimes for an entrepreneur, your proposal may be the first time you're writing a business proposal. You may think that you have to follow the conventional way, which is, you start with executive summary, you go to your company information, and they may think that they have to follow this procedure. But actually, if you start to think about it, it may not start with the executive summary. Normally, it start with the company information. Actually, what VC funds, the fund managers we've interviewed, they think is most important is the market. Is it a big market? Is it a good enough market? And so we've rearranged the thought process a little to help the beginner entrepreneur think in a more VC fund manner. So we start with market, how big's the market? Because if they don't cut it at this stage, then the proposal isn't going to go anywhere anyway. The second thing that they look at, and this is also from interviews, is the management team. Are they good enough? Can they really execute? And can they really take on the market that they described in the first portion? So we listed out in terms of priority and how they should actually think about it logically. And we hope that through this way, entrepreneurs can also hone their logical thinking process when they actually do a proposal. Because if you miss any of the steps along the way, or if at any point you realize that, actually I don't have a growth strategy, actually I don't have financial analysis, then you got to take a break and maybe go back to the drawing board. Apart from that, we do have the technical chapters, cash flow projections, term sheet terminology, but we also have the soft skills side, which is, how do you interact with the VCs? How do you socialize with them? What do you do at conferences? And while this may seem like fundamental things that everyone should know, from what we've seen is actually not so common. For example, we can see sometimes some entrepreneurs writing to some very senior people, going, hey, so-and-so, great meeting you, maybe, 2 weeks after they actually met. And I think that these soft skills are very important to convey to the entrepreneur, because often before you go for these conferences or events, you actually have to know what you have to do, because you only have that one shot. If you ruin your reputation at these conferences, then that's it. And that's why we include this, techniques for how to keep the VC interested in you. For example, don't reveal all the information at one go. You want to give enough information to keep them interested, but you also want to keep something for the next meeting, so that at the next meeting you can still keep their interest. So this is an overview of the book, and we hope that this will really help beginner entrepreneurs, because this is our target audience, the beginner, understand the whole VC landscape better.
So Elaine, thank you for the great and thorough summary and review of your book. And now I'm going to ask you to take it even a step further and kind of put your book in a nutshell, and ask that if the reader can only take away one concept, principle, or action item out of everything that you just discussed and out of your entire book, what would you want that to be?
If I had to choose one principle, I would actually choose the principle from one of the case studies that we gave, which is called chicken head statistics. It's on page 87, and it basically teaches you a lesson that you can get anything you want if you're creative enough about it and if you put in enough effort. Would you like me to maybe give a brief summary of that story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it's basically about how we were helping an ex-convict, and he wanted to open a store that sells chicken rice, food stall. But he didn't know how to do market research. And if you want to find data for chicken rice sales in, for example, Singapore, it's very specific. You're not going to find it. So he sat there, and then, we were brainstorming, and then we realized that, okay, well, why don't you just go to the area that you want to open up your store in? Why don't you just talk to the sellers there and ask them how much they're actually selling per day? But then, we thought that, okay, maybe the food stall operators won't be so honest. Maybe they'll just give a half-hearted answer. So then we thought of a better way, which is that at the end of the day, just tell the food stall operators that we want to buy the chicken heads to, for example, give to our dogs or pets, as food. But we actually use the chicken heads as a measure to calculate how much they're actually selling per day. And so this becomes an indicator to tell us, how big the market actually is in that area. So, to sum it all up, it's creative thinking, and, the spirit that, the kind of attitude that no matter what, you can get the answer as long as you put enough effort into it.
Excellent. And there's a couple quotes that I could have pulled out of that right there, but that's our next question as well. Do you have a favorite quote from your book?
Actually, I would say that, that is, my favorite part of the book, which is, I think that really encapsulates everything, which is, think creatively and put in a lot of effort, and, you get something out of it.
Excellent. So, Elaine, it wouldn't be a book podcast, a book-centric podcast, if we didn't ask you for a book recommendation. So what's a book that you've read? Doesn't even have to be on business or venture capitalism, but what's a book that you've read that's had a lasting effect on you, maybe created a paradigm shift?
Well, I think that's a hard question. But for me, personally at least, I think reading Singapore's Lost Son, which is, Dr. Kaiwen Leong's biography, really changed my life, actually. I think it really shows, how putting in effort, how being determined can really turn your life around, and how he has turned around the lives of others. And I think even for me, the process of helping him to collect material to write a book, really changed my life. And I would really recommend everyone to read it because, it's accessible to anyone. Even if you are just a 12-year-old, 16-year-old, it's accessible to everyone.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that book with us. And what was the author?
Singapore's Lost Son, and that's by Kaiwen Leong.
Okay, very good. We'll reference that on our show notes page so that people can go check that out. So, Elaine, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to get more information on you and your book, Venture Capital?
I would say about us, we have there's a Facebook page for Singapore's Lost Son if you want to read more about Dr. Leong and what he's up to. But for Venture Capital, we are Amazon page.
Okay, very good. Elaine, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your book with us.
Thank you, Wade, for inviting us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening in again today. If you'd like more information on Elaine or her book, Venture Capital, just look at the show notes at the elpodcast.com. And if you'd like an opportunity to win today's book, Venture Capital, become a VIP also at the homepage of the elpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea?
Head over to the elpodcast.com,
Where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs with you for free.
That's the elpodcast.com.
Till the next time, keep it on the EL.